Welcome everyone. It's John Archer from Backbone Connect here. Thanks for joining us this morning. This is another of our hopefully entertaining installments in our season of webinars from the Backbone Connect team. Last time out, we highlighted how important it was to ensure that your Office 365 data was suitably protected and how it can help protect not just the organization's emails, but ensure that your SharePoint and OneDrive files are backed up safely and securely. Next in the series, Thursday this week, in fact the 18th of June, we're specifically talking about return to work solutions and the safety of your staff and how technology might play a key part in that. In the near future, we've also got webinars coming up on cybersecurity and SD-WAN, so hopefully it'll keep you entertained. This webinar, it should be around about half an hour to 40 minutes. There should be time for Q&A at the end and hopefully enough for you to put the kettle on or join your yoga session or your lunchtime run. I'm joined again today by Nick King, Enterprise Solutions Architect at our cloud partner, Ireland. Thanks for coming back again today, Nick. Are you on the line?
Cheers, thank you, John. Good to be here.
Brilliant. Yeah, you're the brave man again who's going to conduct the live demo of Ireland RAS with vMware Zerto and showcase the console for us and walk us through a Catalyst tool demo as well. So looking forward to that. We've also got my colleague LeVar Henry on the bridge. He's going to support the Q&A later on. So let's get cracking. Okay, a little bit about Backbone Connect. A few of you asked last time. Just a number of you tuning in today, you will have worked with us previously. Founded in 2008, we put exceptional service and customer satisfaction at the heart of our business. We pride ourselves on being different and better. I mean, our goals are to solve customer challenges with IT infrastructure, which could include wide area network, internet access, collaboration, hosted telephony, or data center infrastructure needs. It could be cybersecurity concerns or a cloud adoption challenge. We're also the connectivity and technology specialists within the commercial real estate sector. Our team brings together multiple technologies and partners under one service wrap to give you the best possible outcome. And cloud and cloud services is all part of that capability. I mean, every organization today has backups, or at least I hope they do, and some feel it's still all they need to protect their environment. So yeah, pretty much that's what the name of the game is today, really. Our cloud partners, Ireland. I'm delighted to be working with Ireland because DIY backup and DR solutions don't suit all businesses. So partnering is often a good option. It was certainly the same for Backbone when we were selecting a partner to work with for secure enterprise cloud solutions such as backup as a service and DR as a service. Yeah, we chose to work with Ireland. They have global coverage through over a dozen data centers. We find them extremely responsive, great to work with, extremely well accredited, and recognized multiple times as the leader in the Magic Quadrant for DR as a service by Gartner. So they're a great fit for us and have terrific recommendations. Last time we were together, well, again, the theme then was about protecting some of your most important data, whether that was email correspondence, your SharePoint or OneDrive files. We talked last time at length about the 3-2-1 rule of backups and explained how you can use Veeam and the Ireland Cloud Console to plug the gaps in the default Office 365 backup options. In fact, our poll during the webinar suggested that majority of attendees were relying on the default Microsoft settings and potentially had protection gaps. At the time, Nick also demonstrated how to protect and restore files in real time using Veeam Explorer, which was pretty cool. We also focused last time on the data in 365 because it's frequently assumed it's comprehensively backed up by default, but it's not. And we know not all businesses are the same, but broadly speaking, we've all got critical data in one form or another. So if you've got, a local file server, then perhaps secure cloud backup, BAS, backup as a service, might form part of your data protection strategy. Or if you've got a NAS, a network attached storage, it might benefit from offsite storage, perhaps your unstructured data, say with a S3 type API, then we can look at object storage with you. But today's webinar is all about DR as distinct from just backup. So I know we're somewhat beyond the days when the IT manager takes the backup tape home in the boot of a car or backpack on a bike or the bus, but regardless of whether it's saved to an off-site location, if your primary compute's unavailable the following morning because of the classic office has burnt down overnight, or indeed more likely, hopefully, than that, just a critical hardware failure, a backup tape in the hand or a big file off-site with nothing to restore to is not going to help you get your business up and running anytime soon. And that's really what we're looking at. So do backups, yes, but your business has to continue, and you need a DR plan, not just for a power cut, a fire or flood, but a significant incident or loss of your primary IT environment. And that could include ransomware, in fact. So we think very, very much about critical infrastructure failures, but ransomware could form a part of that. Business continuity, disaster recovery planning, it can encompass a wide range of business activities and operational challenges. I mean, many of us bailed out the office in March and haven't been back since. I know as part of our ISO 271 certification, the business continuity and the DR plan for the backbone team, we'd refreshed it over Christmas. We did our departmental walkthroughs in the early part of the year, but before we could schedule a date for a full drill, COVID-19 happened, lockdown kicked in, and we've been on effectively enforced sort of business continuity from a staff point of view. But everything worked. It worked for us because we practiced it in advance, but not everyone's that lucky, really. So we know that ransomware is a factor. We know that the first thing that we think about when DR is discussed is a flood or a fire, but the reality is there's multiple reasons why data and systems might be at risk, and why we need to stay on top of it, really, with a backup and DR plan that works and actually test it. So you can see that any of the factors playing out on the screen there could be a potential issue. If any of these reasons resonate with you, then stay plugged in. You can put a number on the loss of revenue or productivity, more or less with a pocket calculator. I'll explain what that is to any millennials listening, but the impact to a business when the lights go out can be felt in terms of the intangibles, your reputation, as you might have seen when another big logo company reports a data breach or gets found out or suffers a platform-wide incident. So yes, absolutely, there's a there's a monetary, but perception, loyalty. Our customers are going to walk away because they just can't book on your platform. They'll choose someone else's. Purpose of the webinar really is to highlight that backups aren't the only answer to recovering a business from an IT failure. They're definitely a piece of the puzzle, but it's like having a cloud folder full of your data. It's not going to help if you don't have machines or an IT room or even an office or a rack of servers available to restore your data. And that's really the key point. Protecting data for office-based, protecting your office-based data used to be an off-site tape. Back in the days of Iron Mountain, lady or guy used to turn up with a little pelly case full of tapes, swap them over and take them off-site again. Then we began to adopt cloud backup. DR for an office IT used to be a rack of colo servers with the data backed up nightly. Still means a lot of kit, bandwidth considerations, and obviously someone's got to feed and water yet another IT infrastructure sat there for the what if. And if your RPO, your recovery time objectives, your recovery point objectives need to be any better than kind of like next day, you get into the exciting world of replication, even more bandwidth, more software, and all the skills to operate it. So depending on your preferences and expertise, the in-house option might be appealing, or it might have been appealing one time, or it's something you've got in place now. But if it's something you're embarking on for the first time, here's a starting checklist. This is the sort of things, if you were looking to do it yourselves, you can apply this list or some of the items to any option which involves the creation of, say, a full-size secondary environment. Maybe it resides at one of your other offices or an offsite data center. Yep, there's a lot to consider and potentially a significant effort to set that lot up and maintain it. You'll also at one point have to initiate full or partial DR to prove that the solution works. I mean, that can be tricky to schedule with the stakeholders buy-in, but for sure it needs to be done. You don't want the first time that you test DR to be the first real disaster. So the arguments or justifications for DR as a service, well, you're not going to have to build your own data center or own the DR infrastructure. There's typically no capex as there would be with an in-house solution. The kit doesn't need replacing every 3 years. It's offsite by default. You're not restricted to throwing a big switch and having to do a full-on DR test, with all that entails every time you want the reassurance that the DR solution's there for you. The dashboard and console gives you terrific visibility. You can see where your systems are and how they're behaving, before and after the DR exercise. We think DR as a service is the next logical step from cloud backup. It should form part of your business continuity plan. And that's perfectly achievable for most environments, where, for example, there are local servers and storage, regardless if that's in an office or, in fact, already in a data center. So before the demo, we're just going to put up a quick poll. And the question in the poll that we're going to put up is: have you or your business conducted a full successful IT infrastructure or DR test within the last 12 months? So really, I'm just going to launch that poll live now. That'll play out on your screens. Just choose whichever of those comes up with the best fit for you. So at the moment, from the answers, they're running in, broadly speaking, neck and neck. We've got some who are a yes full and yes partly, and just a couple who have a no we haven't. So it's good in a way that there's a by far the majority have some solution in place at the moment, but of 40% of respondents have conducted a full invocation, 40 have done part, and 20 haven't, as things stand at the moment. So that just gives you an idea that where the audience stand with that. Fantastic. Thanks for the interaction. Okay, back with the slides then. I wanted to reintroduce Nick. This point, I want to hand over the reins. Nick King. He's a senior solutions architect at Ireland. He's the brave guy who's going to take us through the console demo and dashboard. He's going to demonstrate how logical and simple, relatively, the process of setting up and testing partial or full DR can be. There are some nifty touches in there too for those with a compliance or cybersecurity interest. We'll also introduce you to Catalyst, which takes the guesswork out of sizing your DR as a service resources. So I'm going to just fling over the sharing, and I'm going to make Nick the presenter.
Thanks, John.
There we go, Nick. The reins are yours.
Good. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen just to double check that before I start. Yep.
I can indeed.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so guys, yeah, as I go through the demo today, I guess my aim is for it to highlight how the solution minimizes risk for the customer, the ease of non-impact DR testing as well, the visibility and control that customers have over their recovered VMs, and also how it's all based on predictable costs and avoids any sort of nasty cost-based surprises as well. So what we're looking at right now is the Island Secure Cloud Console. So this pretty much underpins all of the services that we provide. So not just disaster recovery as a service, also production hosting, Office 365 backup, object storage, and also offsite cloud backup as well. So it underpins all of those services, and it provides our customers with that typical one pane of glass view. The console itself is all built on REST APIs. So if there's any of those sort of clever guys in the audience that like to automate or maybe extract, functionality and workflow into their own tools, they can definitely do that. So this sits on top of a VMware-based cloud. So vSphere and then vCloud Director sits on top of that for the multi-tenancy piece. Then we have the cloud console that we're looking at now. And then we've integrated other technologies into the solution, into the stack, and also into the console as well, some of which I'll cover as part of this demo. So the focus today is disaster recovery as a service. So the main sections that I'm going to cover as part of that are the dashboard, networking, continuity, which is where the DR piece lives, and also security as well. In terms of what I'm seeing down the left-hand side, it's kind of what a typical DR as a service customer would see as well. They would be allocated their own virtual organization, and within that, there would be also at least one virtual data center. And it's what the virtual data center is where their recovered virtual machines will be recovered to and will run. And obviously, no other customer has access to that or can see that. And as you can see, it gets more granular as I go down. So we've got the virtual applications and VMs themselves. So all of this, what I can see is all governed by role-based access control. So that's all configured in the user management part of the console. So you can shape this to fit your teams. It's all based on traditional roles and permissions, so you can dictate what they can see and also what they can do in terms of those workflows as well. And you could also employ two-factor authentication in accessing the console in the first place. The whole solution has been built with security in mind from the bottom up. So we're going to start with disaster recovery as a service, the continuity tab. So that's where that piece lives. And as an intro to Island, we have two flavors of disaster recovery as a service built on two different technologies. We have Veeam replication, and we also have Zerto hypervisor-based replication, which is what we're looking at now. And I guess the key thing that drives a customer down a particular path is their attitude to data loss, because Zerto being hypervisor-based replication, it can achieve RPOs of just single seconds, whereas Veeam being a snapshot-based technology, I normally recommend that you don't schedule those any more than sort of 4 hours. So 4 hours in terms of the RPO there. But essentially, we're not biased to either technology. We can provide both, and both are integrated into the console. So we're going to focus on the Zerto version of it today, and what we're seeing in our demo lab is what we're protecting for this example customer. So we're protecting 15 recovery groups. So if you read that as logical applications or virtual protection groups in Zerto language, with for anybody that knows Zerto already, I can see that represents 25 virtual machines as well. And I also get that information in terms of the storage being consumed in terms of those replica disks that exist in the customer's recovery environment. And I can also see the individual recovery groups. So I can see the name, I can see how many virtual machines they contain. I get a real-time RPO figure here as well. So even in our demo lab, if I was to do a live failover right now, I'm only going to suffer just 4 seconds worth of data loss. And right across on the right, I can see when each of these was last tested as well. So that is the basis for the solution. It enables the customer to test their DR solution as often as they need to, because it has no impact on the live production virtual machines, and it doesn't pause the ongoing live replication either. So that still continues in the background. So that's key. Customers can test as often as they like. And in terms of failing over, really, really simple to do that. We have a failover wizard. Let me just refresh. Oh, there we go. So what we've got two types of failover. We've got test and live. Actually, let me just quickly come out of that. I think I've skipped too far. So test and live, very, very simple to do. So I'm going to do a test today as part of the demo. We're going to do a recovery group test failover. Click on next. And now I'm presented with everything I'm protecting for this particular customer. So I could fail everything over. I could fail over a subset of their applications or just one application. I'm going to keep it simple today and just choose one. And by default, it's going to recover to the most recent point in time, i.e., suffering the least amount of data loss. But what we can also do is choose from a list of very, very granular points in time called checkpoints. And we can choose points in time up to 30 days in the past to recover to instead. And as you can see here, I've got a long list of very, very granular checkpoints. So where this is particularly useful, and it's actually got quite a few of our existing customers out of some very tricky holes, is when they've been infected with ransomware, knowing when that ransomware infection roughly took place, they choose a point in time just before that, recover their VMs clean into the Island data centers, obviously patch that vulnerability, and then use the wizards to fail back as well. So it's another really good value add, another really good use case that the underlying technology is give you. And Veeam also gives you previous recovery points as well to utilize in the event of those kind of scenarios. I'm going to keep it simple today and choose the most recent point in time, the latest one. I simply then go on to next. And now I get a summary screen and I click on submit. It's as easy as that. And now what's happening in the background is that VMs are being created in the customer's recovery environment, their virtual data center, to exactly the same specification as their existing VMware production VMs. It's then going to attach the replica disk that we already have in place, and then it's going to boot those VMs up to the operating system ready for the end users to log on and do their test and validation. So in a live environment, that just takes between 1 and 2 minutes. So in terms of RTO, very, very quick as well. And one thing to point out here as well for VMware customers, because you're replicating to a VMware-based recovery site, you don't have to go introduce any complexity or risk around hypervisor conversion. Which is a key consideration, because I can appreciate you can also replicate maybe to the hyperscalers, but if you do that, you are introducing hypervisor conversion risk and complexity. And from experience, I can tell you that that does lead to quite a few unsuccessful live DR invocations. So with us, no hypervisor conversion or complexity, which is essentially an unplanned migration to the cloud. If you view that's what your disaster recovery exercise is, that's essentially what you're doing. So you don't want to introduce any risk, unnecessary risk or complication into that. So we'll let that test failover tick away in the background, and we'll circle around to the VMs that's actually going to create for us. But a few things just to cover off before I move on to another part of the console. Starting with the recovery runbooks. So this is a really useful feature. It enables customers to shape logical recovery runbooks around their various failover scenarios. So for example, maybe a customer wants the ability to just fail over a particular department's applications. Or a particular geographical location. They can do that. So they can simply create a logical recovery runbook and then drag and drop the individual recovery groups into that runbook and put them in the order that they want those logical applications to be recovered in. So really simple to do that, and then they can simply come in and use that failover wizard and execute a test or a live failover of the recovery runbook rather than choosing the individual recovery groups as I did as part of that example test failover. So we're going to circle back to the continuity section at the end of the demo, but now I'm going to actually go onto the dashboard. So this is where the customers have that visibility and control about the VMs that are actually going to recover. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to jump into the virtual data center, and there's kind of 3 levels I'm going to show you here. So the virtual data center level, the virtual application level, and also the virtual machine level as well. So for this particular customer, I can see that they've got some logical applications in that sort of test recovery mode as part of that test failover that we're doing. But they've also got some live virtual machines as well. So in this particular view, I can see everything running in their virtual data center. So I can see the total number of logical applications, the number of virtual machines that represents. I get a snapshot view in terms of the consumed resources, so CPU, RAM, and storage. I get to see the virtual applications as well, easy to reference power in terms of the color coding there, and I get to see the allocation in terms of processor, RAM, and disk. So really, really simple to do. And at the virtual data center level as well, we also give you, and this is one of the common themes of this part of the dashboard, we give you insight into your performance. So you get performance graphs for CPU, RAM, network, and storage. We give you that in real time, but also we keep all of that information for 12 months as well in a very large back-end Cassandra database. So this information is available to you. It's at your fingertips. You can download these graphs in various formats for internal distribution. And it's essential that you have it, because essentially it gives you all of that historic information around performance. And also if you need to do historic troubleshooting, that data can be very, very useful for that as well. And then at the bottom, we have the recent events as well at the virtual data center level. But just going back up here, just one thing just to point out, that if you do have to invoke maybe a live DR event, and maybe your production site is down for several months and you need to run in the island recovery site for that amount of time, maybe you want to add new applications alongside the ones that you've actually recovered. So doing that is very, very simple. You simply build new applications from templates. Let me just quickly show you that. And again, you can build those from pre-configured templates in either the Island global catalog, which contains the typical Microsoft and Linux-based templates and ISOs, or you can upload your own bespoke templates and ISOs, again, using very easy to use wizards in the console to your own dedicated catalogs and deploy from those instead. So I just wanted to show you that. But in terms of disaster recovery, let's go a level deeper to a virtual application itself that is currently in test failover mode. So this is a virtual machine that an application that we failed over, a very simple application. It just contains 3 virtual machines. We can see it's in test recovery mode because of the testing recovery suffix there. So I get to see everything about this application. That's key here. We've got the same visibility and control around this application as if it was running in our live environment. And that's key, because it means you as a customer can bring your existing VMware skills with you to your DR solution, rather than having to learn new technical skills or new technical concepts. So in terms of what we can do with this virtual machine, again, I can see everything about it. I can see the combined allocation in terms of processor, RAM, and storage. I can see individual information around the virtual machines themselves. I can see the network that they're connected to right now. Again, performance metrics, but this time at the virtual application level, and also the recent events at the application level as well. But I can control, obviously, power for this application, the full power cycle capabilities that you would get if you're working with this application in your production environment. And in terms of actions, again, maybe this is a recovered application and I want to add VMs to it. Again, we can do that using those pre-configured templates. I can edit the properties, I can edit the metadata. Maybe this is a critical application. I need to be made aware if it's ever powered down or even powered on. Again, I can create those power status alerts. I can set runtime leases, storage leases, leverage VMware snapshots, and also things such as moving it and copying it, managing the startup and shutdown, which is important, making sure those VMs come up in the correct order for this logical application. So complete control, complete visibility around the application. But let's go down to the final level, which is a virtual machine. So I'm going to choose this one here, which I think, yeah, just a simple Linux virtual machine that we've recovered. So again, complete visibility, complete control around it. Because this VM has hot add enabled in production, when we failed it over, it's also got hot add enabled in the recovery site. So I can increase the processor count if I want to on the fly. I can increase the RAM, increase existing disk, add additional disks. I can connect it to any pre-configured internal network, or change the IP address, all of that good stuff. I've got full power cycle capabilities over it, including things such as forcing guest customization. And in terms of actions, again, complete control. I can reconfigure the VM, again, power status alerts, again, snapshotting, this time at the VM level. And this is actually something that customers use quite often. What a lot of our customers do, knowing that they can do that test failover as often as they like without any production impact, what they tend to do is use that and spin up test VMs, and they use those to test out maybe their operating system updates or their code changes for their applications. And they do that knowing they've created instant copies of their live VMs, but obviously that's away from production. They're doing that in the island data centers. So as part of that exercise, they can leverage the underlying VMware snapshots, so they have the ability to create snapshots, consolidate snapshots, return to previous points in time as well. So it's another really good value add in terms of the ability to do that test failover as often as you want to without any impact to production. We could also insert media as well, so both from the Island Global Catalog, but again, if you have those bespoke ISOs that you need to make available to your recover VMs, simply upload those to your dedicated catalog using the wizards in the Island console, and you simply come in here and insert that media into your recovered VMs. And then you could also open up the VM console as well. And I think this is, in my opinion, something that VMware guys possibly take for granted, that fully interactive keyboard video mouse console. You don't necessarily get that with the hyperscalers. And from experience, I've seen a lot of failovers to the hyperscalers. It kind of fails, the VMs get created, but often the VMs don't get connected to the network. So without that interactive, easy to use console, it's very difficult to log on to the VM console, do your troubleshooting and actually do the fix and bring the VMs online. Obviously, with this solution, you won't run into those issues. And you also have access to the advanced actions as well for the VMs. So maybe you are running in the running a live failover, you're running in your environment, your island recovery environment for a number of months. Maybe you want to upgrade your VMware tools or even your VMware hardware versions. Again, you have the capabilities to do that within the console in exactly the same way as what you do in your production environment. In terms of performance, again, you get all of the performance metrics, CPU, RAM, network and storage, again, both in real time and up to 12 months in the past. And of course, you can configure those proactive resource alerts, again, in exactly the same ways you do in production, around the typical VMware-based thresholds and triggers, maybe something around CPU ready, for example, which is a common one. And again, as you can see from the performance metrics, we give you CPU ready both in percentage and milliseconds. And again, all of this you can download in various formats to make it easy to distribute that internally to your teams. And then right at the bottom, again, we have the recent events, but this time at the virtual machine level. So that's a dashboard, and hopefully there I've illustrated that although it looks slightly different, it's all based on those existing VMware workflows that you're probably using in live right now. So now we're going to go on to networking, because obviously recovering VMs is only half the story. You have to be able to connect to them, otherwise, it's a pointless exercise. So what we actually do is provide, by default, the VMware NSX Edge device. So it's integrated into the solution. We provide it free to our customers. They don't have to pay extra for it. And it's also integrated into the console as well. So it provides that kind of self-service element. So this demo lab actually mirrors what a common disaster recovery as a service customer would see. They would typically have two edge devices dedicated to them. The first would be purely for replicated data, so it would service an IPsec VPN to make sure that data is encrypted in flight, and of course when it hits the island storage repositories, it's encrypted at rest as well, so full encryption in flight and at rest. And they will also have another failover edge which will provide their recovered VMs with the network, gateway and security services. So this part of the console essentially enables the customer to create those internal networks to which their recovered VMs will automatically be connected to as part of that recovery workflow. And if I go into the failover edge, you'll also see that you'll be able to configure things such as the firewall rules. So really simple and intuitive to do that. And there's some nice features built into this, so you can export and import firewall configurations. And if you do make a change and it's had an adverse effect as well, you can also restore the firewall to a previous point in time. The same is true for NAT rules as well. So again, one of the common methods of accessing your recovered VMs may be via a public IP address. So we can allocate as many as you need for your particular service. So your remote desktop servers, your public-facing web servers, for example, we can allocate those IP addresses for that, and then you can put those NAT rules in place as you need to make sure that traffic gets routed through to the correct internal IP address and the right service. And again, you can take advantage of the import, export, and previous NAT restore points as well. Customers can also configure the HCP routing, VPNs such as layer 2 VPNs and also IPsec VPNs as well, all the way over here. So if a customer does have that alternative premises to work from in the event of a live failover because their main site is down, again, you can configure those IPsec site-to-site VPNs. Really simple to do that. And another method, a common method of connectivity is SSL VPN. So again, in this part of the console, you can manage your own SSL VPN certificates, and this is where you'd also configure the SSL VPN as well. So again, it covers the three common methodologies of connecting in to your recovered virtual machines, and of course most of this configuration you do in advance. It's not something you do as part of that recovery workflow. So in my experience of my time with Ireland, I would say the edge device probably fits the requirements of around 80% of our production hosted and DR customers. But for the other 20% who prefer maybe an alternative technology, maybe they want to bring in something that they're more familiar with, something that they have in live already. So if they want to bring in maybe an ASAV, Cisco ASAV, or a Palo Alto or a Juniper, they're free pretty much to bring in any virtual or physical network device as part of their DR solution. So that's key. Ireland have complete flexibility around that, and we can design those solutions that meet our customers' needs. So that's the networking part. Now I'm going to go on to security before circling back to the continuity piece. So this is another section where we've integrated some technologies. So Trend Micro Deep Security and Tenable Nessus vulnerability scanning are all part of the infrastructure. Again, they're included in the solution, integrated into the console. They're there for the customer to use if they want to use it. So they provide a very good baseline for security as part of their service. But again, if a customer has a preference for alternative technologies, they can bring those in and use those instead. But what we're looking at here is we can see a snapshot of malware and viruses, log inspection, VM-based firewalls, integrity checking, web reputation, and web protection in terms of intrusion. And of course, some of these are running in real time in the background, and customers can run on-demand scans as well against VMs that are running within their recovery environments. Some of these are probably more appropriate to our hosted customers because they do need agents. But the one I see used most by our DR customers is probably the vulnerability scanning. So what a lot of customers do is every time they do a test failover, knowing they've created exact copies of their live virtual machines, they run a vulnerability scan against those, so it scans anything that's public facing, and it produces a really nice report in a PDF format. So again, makes it very easy to download and distribute that as you need to. And I think in our demo lab, it does actually pick up a couple of severities. Yeah, there we go. So those 3 medium severities it's picked up based on the workflows that we're actually running right now. And the cool thing about it is it also gives you links to proposed solutions to these vulnerabilities on the Tenable website. So again, the customer can investigate those solutions, deploy those on these test VMs, make sure the vulnerability has been removed, and obviously roll that same process back into production with confidence, and also knowing how long it's going to take, and of course any kind of impact to production as well. So it's another really good, useful feature, goes hand in hand with the ability to do that test failover as often as you need to. And of course, security teams, love that kind of report as well. So going back up to security, there's quite a lot in this section, so I won't be going through everything today, but there are a few other things I do want to promote. So login event history, cloud event history, so customers have access to that. They can download both, search through it, so it gives them the ability to, validate who's accessing the data where and when their workloads are running in their island recovery environments. That feeds nicely into compliance, nicely into auditing, which is one of Ireland's key strengths. We do have a dedicated UK compliance team. So if customers do need that input around auditing in line with their Ireland services, you get very, very quick expertise from these guys here. But we also publish a lot of compliance information in the console. So again, you can download it in PDF format and distribute that as you see fit. So if you need a copy maybe of the Ireland ISO 27001 certificate, or maybe our GDPR policies, again, simply come into the console and download those in that PDF format, and you can distribute those on as you need to. And then lastly, we have another compliance report, which again, customers can run against workloads running in their recovery environment. So, in conjunction with a test or a live failover. This one's all based around HIPAA, so healthcare insurance in the US, which is one of the most stringent compliances that our guys in the US have to meet. And again, you can run this on demand, and it produces yet another really nice PDF report. I won't go all the way through this one because it's very detailed. It runs to about 50 pages, but the key here is it's another report that feeds nicely into compliance, nicely into auditing, and of course, if it finds something that needs to be acted upon, forward it to your security teams, because it forms a really nice basis of an action plan as well. So again, all integrated into the console, into the solution. Not something the customer has to pay extra for, but it's there if they want to use it, essentially. So that's security. So now I'm going to circle back to the continuity piece, just to round off that test failover. So if I scroll down here, I can see my active failover task right now. So it's waiting on me as the person that invoked this to really signify whether it's a successful or a failed failover. So let me click on it. So this is the dialog. I denote whether it was a success or a failure. So if I click on either of those now, what it's basically going to do is remove the test virtual machines. We no longer need those because we've cancelled the failover. But of course, the replica disks remain in place, and we continue to replicate to those. And we have been replicating live transactions to those while we're in that test failover mode as well. So very, very simple to do that. And then lastly, you can also see your most recent failover tasks as well. And for each of these, live and test, you can produce a really nice PDF failover report. So this is a good example. Let me just scroll down to the main content of this. So here we go. So what I can see here is that this was a failover test. I can see it was done by my colleague Dave in Australia. I can see when it was started, when it was stopped, how long it took in terms of that all-important RTO figure. So, even in our demo lab, just less than 3.5 minutes. I can see that Dave passed it as being a successful test failover. I can see where it was recovered to. So that would be the customer's dedicated virtual data center. I can see the failover networks that the VMs were automatically connected to as part of that recovery workflow. And then lastly, I can see all of the detailed steps that are happening behind the scenes at the VMware level and at the Zerto level, for example. So again, if there is any issues, this performs that vital information for troubleshooting as well. So it's a key report. So essentially what customers do, they provide this to anybody that is a stakeholder in their business's DR solution, because ultimately it proves that if you need to invoke it in anger, it's going to work for you, and it's a solution that you can rely on, which is the foundation for any DR solution, in my opinion. So that's the DR recovery report. So that's most of the console demo. Just a couple of things I just want to round off before going on to Catalyst. This is also where customers would come to log their support requests. So you can do that, but of course you can do that via the telephone. So Ireland provide 24/7 follow the sun support. And one of the refreshing things about Ireland is that you get straight through to those level 2 engineers that are all certified in the technologies that we use for our services. So you don't have to go through that sort of level 1 triaging process that can sometimes be a bit frustrating. And in our live environment, we also have live chat. So if you are doing that live failover, typically it's always going to be at weekends and probably at midnight. And it might be a while since you've actually seen the console. So you're doing that live failover and you need that reassurance or guidance that what you're about to press is correct. We'll open up our live chat. Our guide answers that. We'll be able to see exactly what you're doing in the console. So he can give you that reassurance, that guidance as needed, or if it's your preference for him to actually do that workflow, him or her to actually do that workflow, they will do that on your behalf as well. So you get that, although this is a self-service approach, you get the arm around your shoulder from a very, very good support team at all times. We also have a very good documentation page. We call it the Ireland Success Center. So this is all based on really good KB articles, really good videos, and it's all done by our clever guys internally, our engineers and architects. And essentially we have lots of articles all around what customers commonly try to do, configurations and the questions that they have. And then we also have a customer feature request page as well, which is really important. We really are keen on engaging with our end customers, so they can come in and easily create feature requests or upload other customers' upvote other customers' feature requests as well. And that's really important to us because a lot of the features and workflows that I've shown you today, their starting point was a customer feature request. So that is something we really encourage in our customer base. So that's the Ireland console and the disaster recovery as a service overview. So now what I'm going to do is just drop into a quick Catalyst demo for you. Let me just close this down. So this is Catalyst, and again, you download this from the Ireland Success Center site, and it has lots of guides on how to use it and videos and all of that good stuff. And essentially what Catalyst is, it's our lightweight analysis tool that helps us to accurately size customer environments, so to ensure that when they recover their VMs, those VMs perform as expected, to spot any potential compatibility issues that might need us to dig a bit deeper technically, and maybe to design a solution that's more bespoke rather than our standard solution. And it also feeds into predicting failover costs and onboarding times as well. So I've downloaded the kit here. And essentially, we've got a client for both Mac and Windows. So let me start the Windows one. So it's just an executable. It takes about 10 minutes to run Catalyst. It doesn't need to be installed. It doesn't change any registry keys. So you run it, submit the report, and then you can delete it from your disk. Okay, so this is Catalyst, usual disclaimer screen. Let's get past that one. And what we basically do, we need to talk to Virtual Center. So Catalyst does need a read-only account with your Virtual Center. So let me just type in our demo lab one here. And now what it's doing is analyzing vCenter stats and things like that to understand about your production environment and also the VMs that are running within it. It's asking me for a default group. So the principle here is you can create various groups around various business use cases. So for example, you could create a group for your tier 1 applications that you definitely want to be included as part of your DR solution. And then maybe there might be some tier 2 ones that you're not quite sure yet. So you could create a different group for those. So you can create as many groups as you like. So I'm just going to create one today, just called RAS. Click on submit, and now what I'm seeing is the main calculator page. Okay, so what I can see here is that whole virtual infrastructure that this environment is basically running. What I'm going to do before configuring this, I'm going to quickly jump into speed test, because that's important as well. We need to know, particularly around disaster recovery, what your upload speed is, and that way we can assess how long it's going to take to onboard you as a customer, and also to ensure that you have adequate bandwidth for the service as a whole. So here we can see most of the Ireland data centers. They're ranked in order of latency. The US ones are at the top purely because I'm connected to a US-based lab. So I'm going to do a quick speed test on London. We'll leave that running in the background for a minute and go back to the calculator. But here what I can do now, I can basically select all of those virtual machines that I consider critical to the running of my business. So these are the ones that if I have to invoke a live failover, these are the ones that are going to keep the lights on and keep my business running. So I simply click on them, and as I do that, you can see they go green, and also this number is ticking up here. So let's take it up to, let's Let's take it up to 10. So I've selected 10 virtual machines that I consider are critical to the running of my business. And this gives us really good information. I can see the combined allocation in terms of storage, CPU, and memory. So again, it all feeds into the ability to right size the customer environment, taking away that guesswork. Really simple to do. And also it's doing compatibility checks in the background as well. So for example, it will be checking the customer's VMs, it will be checking the hardware version they're running to make sure it's compatible with the island recovery site, for example. So it's doing those kind of compatibility checks. Obviously, we're doing the speed tests in the background. But one of the important pieces of information is right here. So what it's actually doing is looking at this group of 10 virtual machines, and it's telling us what the average and peak CPU and memory consumption is. So this is really important, again, in terms of sizing, but it's also very important in terms of predicting failover costs. So at this point, it's probably a good time to explain what the island's basic costing model is for DR. So essentially, if you think about the two technologies that we're using, most of the time, all you're consuming is storage and replication, because you're replicating most of the time. You only start to consume compute when you invoke a test or live failover, because it's at that point the VMs are actually created. So for that reason, what we do, we reserve the storage, we reserve the bandwidth based on the accurate sizing that Catalyst gives us, and we do that on a lower unit cost to make it cost effective for the customer. Then in terms of compute, you just pay for that as and when you need it. And the good thing about the island pricing model is that's all based on consumption rather than allocation. So as an example, if you were going to fail over that 16 gigabyte SQL server, I would argue if you're doing a test failover or even a live failover, maybe over the, outside of core hours over the weekend, if it's only consuming 2 gigabytes of RAM, that's all you're going to be paying for. So ultimately, it makes it a very cost effective and ultimately a very fair pricing model. But this is also very important because we know what the peak and average compute is. We can also use that to predict how much it's going to cost you every time you do that test or live failover. Because we know what our unit costs are for RAM and what they are for CPU, we can predict how much it's going to cost you to failover on an hourly basis, a daily basis, and a weekly basis. So again, it all feeds into the principle where you should be able to budget accurately and effectively for your DR solution and avoid any nasty cost surprises. So that is what Catalyst gives us the ability to do. And then lastly, I just go down here, that speed test has now run for London. Because we know the amount of data that is in question here for the 10 VMs that are in scope for DR, because we know what the upload speed is, we can also estimate how long it's going to take to do that initial seed. So this is really important for the customer, because then they can take that, put it into their project plan, because they know roughly how long it's going to take before this DR solution is in place and they're ready to turn it on and consider it live. So again, it takes the guesswork out of the onboarding time as well. And then lastly, what a customer would do once they've configured, the groups, and again, you could create a different group, maybe, as I say, for a tier 2 set of virtual machines, or even a tier 3, you can create as many groups as you like and choose the same VMs or a different combination of VMs. It's up to you. You simply come to the report tab, complete your name, click on submit, and then Catalyst information gets sent to Island in a secure manner. Then a solutions architect, such as myself, would then analyze it, and then we would take the opportunity to present that back to the customer at the same time as doing a bit more of a technical scoping in terms of connectivity and all of that good stuff. But ultimately, it makes it very, very easy to right size customer environments, take the guesswork out of the billing side of things, and helps us to spot any potential compatibility issues that we might need to address as part of that solution. So on that note, that is the Catalyst demo complete. I hope you enjoyed it, and at this point, I'll hand back to John.
Terrific, mate. Thank you for doing that. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to get back onto my screen, if that's okay. Hopefully, that's the correct one sharing up there. And yeah, we'll if you can stay on the line, we've got some questions coming in, Nick, which is always good to get. So I hope we didn't overdo the message about over reliance on backups. We'll always have backups as part of any IT solution, but really, I mean, this can be so neatly dovetailed into a broader, cloud-based DR infrastructure solution. You don't have to fathom out on your own. As you can see, it doesn't also have to be capex heavy as it traditionally used to be. The Catalyst tool, thanks for showcasing that, Nick. I mean, that really means you can right-size the solution, get a real handle on costs. You can self-serve it if you can write that URL down as fast as you can, but the team will follow up with you and make sure that whether you want to self-run that or if you need support and assistance running that, we're delighted to do that alongside you. Again, I really like the ability to routinely test parts of your infrastructure in the cloud environment. It really builds confidence knowing when you need to invoke, the platform's there and available for you, particularly partial. With those advanced security tools built in, it just goes to show that, yeah, with this particular solution, there's so much more to DRaaS than just a bunch of resources remotely. So, if you want to see how these benefits might play out for you, we'll reach out to you, speak to one of the team, we'll do an individual consultation and we can get Catalyst run. And if it hasn't already become apparent, obviously DRaaS can be used as a springboard to a cloud migration. As you can see, they're really leaning on cloud for DR is one thing. If your long-term goal is to retire on-premise IT infrastructure or adopt a pure cloud approach, DRaaS can allow you to prove how well suited your apps and data are to running in a cloud environment. I've worked with a client a few years ago who invoked DR as a test one weekend, found that one of their main applications performed better on the cloud platform as it did on-prem. So they left it there. That's obviously that was their choice, but it was their experience that it just suited the cloud deployment. They didn't have to fail everything back. They left that application there. I mean, your situation might be different, but if you want to free yourselves from the lower tiers of maintaining IT infrastructure, as you can see, focus on where the value to your business might be, the data apps and new initiatives, new projects, then cloud might be the answer for you. So I've seen some questions coming in from the audience. We'll get to those right now. So Nick, I've had one here. It says, how can customers predict costs from their DR solution to avoid surprises?
Yeah, I guess that really goes back to Catalyst. That's what it's doing for us. The key thing is here, it's right sizing storage and also bandwidth that's needed as well. So the customer benefits from a reserve model there, so they benefit from a lower unit cost. But as I said before, it's only when you invoke a test or live failover that VMs are actually created. So it's only at that point that you start to consume compute. So because Catalyst gives us that average weekly figure in terms of average and peak for the VMs that you've selected as part of your recovery, your disaster recovery as a service solution. Taking that figure into account, we can then multiply that out against our burst cost for RAM and CPU, and we can do that, as I say, on an hourly basis, daily basis, weekly basis. And again, it gives you a very, very good estimation as to how much it's going to cost you every time you invoke a test or a live failover. So it really does remove any nasty cost surprises, and it enables you to budget for it effectively on a monthly basis, which is the key to any cloud-based service, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's a question there: how long can I run in cloud after invoking live DR?
There's no limit. So I think it probably feeds into what you just said, John. A lot of our, because obviously we are number one in the Gartner quadrant for DR as a service, but production hosting is also one of our key services. And the way a lot of customers become production customers is that they invoke a live failover, unfortunately, and they discover that the environment that they've got with Island has got better compliance, it's got better security, their VMs can often perform far better as well. So for that reason, they just decide to stay there. They don't actually fail back. So that's very easy for us to do. So we can turn a customer into a hosted customer, or a customer can be a DR customer running an island for as long as they need to. I mean, that's key with this solution. There is no limit on that.
Gotcha. Okay, so again, similar question: how frequently can I invoke a test failover, and what's the impact?
Yeah, so that's the key with any DR solution. You have to test it frequently, because if you think about it, your production environment is fluid. You're adding new VMs to it all of the time. You're changing configuration of existing VMs that you're protecting. So for that reason, you need to test. So the good thing about both flavors, both Zerto and Veeam, you can do test failovers as often as you like. And the key there is it doesn't have any impact on your production virtual machines. So you can do it as often as you like. That's really the key there.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the attendees has asked, are customers able to bring in dedicated circuits as part of their DR solution and replication? So, or does connectivity only have to be via the internet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So again, Island have a great deal of flexibility around networking, and in my 2.5 years with Island, I've never had to qualify anything out when it comes to networking. So although I would say 80% of our customers do replicate over the internet via an IPsec VPN or via TLS if it's Veeam, and they also connect over the internet, whether it's public IP addresses or VPNs. I would say there are 20% of customers who prefer to bring in dedicated circuits. And the good thing there is we only use provider independent data centers. So for example, Equinix in the UK. So that means customers can bring in any dedicated circuit that they want to. So as an example, I have a lot of customers that I've worked with that bring in point-to-point connections, or they might bring in a leg of their existing MPLS or VPLS. Yep, no problem at all. We can definitely incorporate that into a customer solution and work with them to define what that's going to look like. That's a fairly common practice for us to do.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. Well, we're nearly timed out. All I'll say is, if there are any themes here which resonate with the audience, if you're either not confident or think you can tighten up your current DR solution, need advice about options, or might even be considering a full cloud migration, for your return to work scenario planning, then speak to one of the Backbone team. If you're not currently a Backbone customer and want to discuss any other challenges you might have around business infrastructure, as we said earlier, connectivity, cybersecurity, collaboration, and of course data center and cloud, you can reach out to us. There's contact details up on the screen. Again, if you want to run Catalyst, you can either raise a hand on the webinar here or contact one of the team once we follow up with you, and we can walk you through running Catalyst. We've been asked for a copy of the slides. We'll make a copy of the webinar available for anyone that wants to view it on catch up. As I say, our next webinar, it's on Thursday. We're looking at the use of technology to reduce risk to employees as part of your return to the workplace. So there we are. That's all that's left really is for us to thank you for listening. Keep an eye out for future webinars. Stay safe, everyone, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, LeVar. That's all from us. Bye for now.
Take care, guys. Bye.